Hi, Read 516. This is part 3 of week 4. So you just watched the video on the deletion test, and so we also have one for the core phonological segmentation test, which is another required assessment for the week. So that's pages 25 to 29 in your core assessment handbook. Again, make sure to use the practice items. You want to only proceed to the test if the student can demonstrate that they understand what they are supposed to be doing, right? Because again, you don't want to be looking at this data and analyzing it and trying to make sense of what the student did if they didn't really understand the task. So you could only go ahead and do it if they um, demonstrate that they understand what they're supposed to be doing. So use those practice items. And you'll need about 8 blocks, right? So the color is not important. Anything that you have around, it helps them with the segmentation. So you could use Legos, you could even use like scraps of paper. I've seen people use counters or lima beans, whatever it is that you want to go ahead and use. Again, only give general feedback. You discontinue on part A if they miss 1 through 3, and on part B you just continue it if they miss 1 through 5. Oh, and just, I guess I didn't mention that on the video before, and I'm not sure if Heather made mention of it, but she went ahead with her assessment even though the student had missed 2 on the one section, but she went ahead with it because she was doing the assessment for the purpose of making a video for it for 516 for instructional purposes. So even though the student missed 2, and if it was in a clinical setting you would stop, she went ahead and did it so that you could see the different parts of that assessment. So let's go ahead and let's do the same thing. Check out the video. You can actually just pause this, and because I'm not going to cut the screencast off here. So pause this one, open up the segmentation test, and take a look at that one. All right, so now after watching both the deletion assessment and the segmentation assessment that Heather did, these are just some kind of general conclusions about the strength of that student's phonemic awareness. So the strength included the final sound deletion, which you saw in the video, segmenting words into syllables, onset and rhyme, and identifying rhyming word pairs. Thinking about needs or next steps with this student, and the student is first grade, and it's beginning of first grade for this student. So further investigate initial sound deletion. You might, I would maybe give a few more assessment items, just considering how she did on that. So I might not be at the point where I'm going to give any instruction on it, but I'd want to investigate further kind of what's going on, and then provide instruction and practice in phoneme segmentation and phoneme manipulation tasks. So sometimes, and that's one of the things with the when you're talking about strengths and weaknesses of the assessment as well, you say, perhaps I felt like there were not enough items to really give me a good picture because the student was kind of all over. So that would be cause for further investigation before you make the decision that you want to go ahead and pursue some instruction on that. All right. So effective phonemic awareness instruction should be systematic, right? So it begins with the larger unit sounds and then it progresses to those smaller units. It should be explicit. There should be a clear explanation of what you are teaching them. It should be modeled, and students need lots of practice with it. And if you teach the little ones, you know that you spend a lot of time doing this. So that's, about 10 to 15 minutes a day in kinder, but then by the time you're in, after first grade, 10 minutes in first grade, but after that it's only as an intervention. So those of you who teach like ECE or beginning kinder, you know that you spend a good, 10 to 15 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time. It's a good chunk of your language arts, right? Doing that piece, and then you'll probably spend it on the alphabet. So you only want to target 1 to 2 skills at a time, but all those lessons should include some kind of segmenting and blending activities. And of course, make it engaging. So these are fun things for kids. I watch my son all the time. He's in TK right now. And him and his friend, they have all the little things. They put their two fingers together. They segment on their arm. They see a word and they try to remember like what their little segmenting techniques are when they hear. I hear him just taking words that he knows and doing these little like blending and segmenting games on his own. He happens to be a kid that loves words. I'm like my older one who can read well but could care less about reading. This one will be my reading superstar. But make it engaging, because if you do, they practice it, as evidenced by Mr. Christopher. He practices it on his own. So a good place to take a look for some fun activities would be on Titanium, the 35 quick and easy ways to develop phonemic awareness. So good reference for you there. All right, so let's talk about learning print awareness and concepts of print, because we're moving into that as well this week. So we want to know that children understand the functional value of print. And they understand it when they can experience it directly. So they can start to read street signs, soup cans, storybooks, write letters. It involves being surrounded by print, and students learn early on that this print carries meaning. Environmental print awareness isn't as important to literacy development as concepts of print, right? So print awareness includes the idea that they are aware of the difference between pictures and words. They can recognize print in many forms, handwriting, typeface. On the computer, in the book, they recognize the different forms of print. They know the difference between letters and words. They understand directionality, so that's why we teach the little ones. We track with our fingers, right? And then we read from left to right, and then pages turn in the same manner. They understand top to bottom as well. So we assess that by observation, right? So watch kids as they reread familiar books or pretend to read. There's actually the CAP assessment, this checklist for concepts about print. There's structured interviews. Or you can take a look at Titanium for the concepts, the CAP assessment by Mari Clay. So alphabet knowledge, something else that we're going to look at. So it's not a prerequisite for launching reading and writing instruction, right? So 4-year-olds, they have some understanding of the letters and the sounds. They tend to recognize the uppercase letters more so than the lowercase. Usually those are the ones that they work with first. And children typically learn letters in their names first, right? So they can almost always pick out that first letter of their name. And then kind of most common letters for kids to know first would be B, G, K, O, P, T, and Z. So they're highly recognizable to children. So we want to assess their alphabet knowledge too, right? But we want to make sure that assessment includes a combination of upper and lower case. You want to make sure that you're aware of any inconsistencies with the font. And so we know that particularly applies to A. So, I don't remember the name of it, but right here, this A, da-da-da, right? We generally don't teach kids to make that A. So if that A is on your assessment, perhaps you want to use a different assessment for kids. But that's one that's kind of most common. Sometimes they get tricked a little too by like little hooks at the end of the letters. So just be aware. The G also would be one. So make note of that. Mari Clay's letter identification assessment is a good one to use. Or you could do an informal assessment. You can use flashcards, do something on the whiteboard. And then there's part of this with the core phonics survey, which is something you will be giving next week. All right, so we are ready to go. So for this week, you want to make sure that you check your practicum session, practicum for student A session guide. You will remember delivering or implementing session 1 and completing that Whopper and then turning that in this week. So on your wiki, you will put that Word document or if you want to save it as a PDF, however you're going to do that. I prefer a Word document rather than a PDF because I can make comments on it. But you're going to go ahead and embed that right onto your project page. So it's Whopper number 1. And then you're going to be planning session 2, which is all of the assessments that we just covered. So yeah, get ready. Have a good time this week with your students. And I look forward to seeing what you've done.